Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at Money 2020 in Las Vegas, we have Erin Lydon. She's the Managing Director and General Manager of Poker Power. We're going to discuss changing the game and refreshing the game of leadership via poker. Erin, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. I think I'm most excited for this segment. It is so interesting to see how this strategy could potentially be applied. So tell us about Poker Power.
Absolutely. So we have three sayings of Poker Power. The first one is the cards you are dealt is luck. How you play them is skill. So think about that in the context of accelerating your career. The second one is if your hand is good enough to play, then it's good enough to raise. And that's all about risk assessment and betting big. And the third one, since we're at Money 20, is at Poker Power, we have a mission to teach 1 million women how to play the game. So it's the game of poker and the game of life. Because money doesn't go by mister. And it's really, really important to us that we are flipping the table and leveling the playing field for women in the workforce with the game of poker.
How many people play poker and when did you start?
Yeah, so I was not a poker player. I learned to play with Poker Power, so in many ways I was customer number one because I was negative about the game. Many women hold negative stereotypes. It's gambling, it's boys, it's booze. They don't want to participate in that. I had the same reaction. As I started to understand how the gameplay translates to the real world, to career acceleration, to negotiation, to risk assessment and problem solving, I became convinced. And once I became convinced, I decided I have to learn to play too. So I've learned with all of our curriculums. We were launched in 2020, so we are a pandemic success story, truly. We built a virtual company first, and we are now back to doing both virtual and in person with our corporate clients.
Let's talk about the strategy for a bit here. Why does poker matter when you think about career acceleration and upskilling?
Sure. So thinking like a poker player, and that's really what it is. I don't actually care if the women in our community ever come and sit at the real table and play poker. That's not what it's about. What this is about is using the skills and strategies, the problem solving, the risk analysis, the capital allocation that a winning poker player would use at the table. That is what we're teaching in our gameplay through repetition. So we need you to come, we need you to learn the basics, and then we need you to play a lot. So it's game after game after game that you start to translate the way that you're playing your cards and the way you're playing your chips into your career, asking for a promotion, going after that raise that maybe you were a little afraid to ask for, really getting outside of your comfort zone, having a tough negotiation with a client. All of those skills can be practiced through gameplay at the table.
So what's a specific example, if you can give us one, perhaps when we think about risk assessment, how much money you're going to put into the pot or how much money you still have left in the till, if you will, and how much you're willing to allocate to it. What's an example of what we would see on the poker table that can be practically applied to work?
Absolutely. So when you're first learning the game, it's very binary. You have your 2 hole cards, those are hidden, no one else sees them, and you're just going to decide, do I raise or do I fold? So that's lesson 1, where you have courage, you've come to the table. Lesson 2, we start to think about betting and positioning, and that's really where your chip stack comes into play. So depending on where your seat is at the table, you could be in a very weak position, which is called out of position, or you could be in the best position at the table, which is the dealer button. That changes with each hand. So everyone gets to sit in the best and the worst positions throughout a poker game. The way you're going to bet, let's say you have a king and a queen when they're offsuit. The way you're going to bet that if you're in the first position, that out of position, is different than the way you would play that if you're in the dealer position. And the reason for that is in the dealer position, you get to see what everyone else does. So you're gathering information before you make your decision. You're then in a position, if your cards are good, and they are, if you have a king-queen, you're going to bet big. That translates to when you think about what cards are you holding in the workplace. When you go and have those tough conversations, when you're strategizing a new business or a new product, what do you already hold? What's great about learning poker, especially for women, because we do tend to be more risk averse, is that we teach you how to bluff. And the reason the bluffing is so important is that is how the world is conducted. Certainly in fintech, certainly in finance, I come from a finance background, bluffing is part of a business skill. And women don't grow up knowing how to do that. We don't learn that on the playground, we don't learn it on the sport court, so we need to practice it. And we do it safely at the table, and then you can translate that to the conversations that you're having.
All right, Erin, appreciate the insight.
Yeah,
super interesting.
Pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.